Okay, we're going to try this again. I couldn't get it to work. I don't know what's going on, so I'm just going to run another test and we'll see what happens. So, there you go. So, as I was saying before, get this off here, we'll see what's going on. My name is David Lee Harter, and today is December 19th. 2018. Want to get this, tell you a story about a trip I took with a buddy of mine. He's deceased now. His name's Bill King. He passed away about 6 years ago. And when we were growing up, the story kind of starts, we end up backpacking around the world. And so I kind of wanted to get this story down on tape, at least from my perspective. It was about 1970, 71 that the story actually starts in about 1964. I was 12 and Bill was about 14. And we grew up in Jacksonville. I was living in a house with my folks at Lee and Faye Harter. At 165 East E Street, behind the store. Today it's a Ray's Market, but we actually lived there before there was a store there, in a house. It's not there anymore. There's a bunch of condos there now. And then Bill lived just a couple blocks up on 4th Street, right across the street, out the front door of the Catholic Church. Lived in an old historic Jacksonville house. So anyway, we just a couple guys in the neighborhood about the same age, and we kind of grew up within a block of each other. Again, he was a little older than I was. Bill was actually quite a leader when he was young. He became an Eagle Scout, and I can remember when he was like a Scoutmaster, Eagle Scout, and kind of a leader of the Boy Scouts, and he was in the band, played saxophone. I played a cornet, but we didn't play in the same band. And so I remember Bill telling me a story one time about how he wanted to try out to be drum major, and it was a pretty big deal because he was a junior in high school, and they don't usually give that position to a junior, they usually give it to a senior. So Bill ended up trying out, and he ended up getting it, and so he was a drum major at North Medford High School from probably about 67, 68, and 69. No, it would have been 66, 67, and 68. I believe he graduated in 1968, which was the first graduating class from the new North Medford High School, back when Medford, Oregon only had one high school. They didn't have a South then. And so about 1968, I was a sophomore in high school, and I had gone to Hawaii with my folks to visit my mom's sister, Bertha Jeffers. She was married to a guy named Joe, and they had 2 sons, Art and Alan. And so they were a little bit older than I was, but kind of chummed around with Art a little bit, and Alan, more so with Art. And so I came back as a sophomore, and my Aunt Bertha had told my mom that, if Dave wants to go to college, back then they called it SOC in Ashland, Oregon. It's a university now, but they called it Southern Oregon College for a couple of years, then maybe transfer to the University of Hawaii, that I could live with them and go to college there, graduate. And so I wasn't really much into college. I was more mechanical. I had kind of a hard time reading, and so I wasn't ever thinking college bound in my mind. But anyway, that's kind of where the story starts. And so Bill and I are just kind of chumming around, and so probably a year goes by, and it's probably like 1968, and he goes, well, what are you going to do when you get out of high school? And I was, like I said, probably a sophomore or junior. I graduated in 1970. And so I told him the story about my aunt invited me over to college, but I didn't know if I'd go to college. And so anyway, some time went by, and Bill graduated from high school, and he started going to SOC and taking music classes because he was kind of a musician. He played saxophone, like I said, in the band, but he played guitar, and for his whole life he played guitar in bands and kind of made a living on the side doing that, and so he enjoyed that. And so as it got closer to getting out of high school, maybe about 1969, we started talking about it a little bit more. And so I don't know who came up with the idea, but we thought, well, why don't we go to Hawaii after I graduate in 1970? And so, I don't know, I guess we were saving up our money, or that was kind of a goal for about a year. We were kicking around. You know, I became a senior in high school, and we were still kind of kicking that around, and so we were kind of headed in that direction. And so we didn't know. And so it was getting closer to, we're going to go to Hawaii. And so we ended up sometime in July, maybe middle of July 1970, we ended up getting on a plane in Medford, and we flew down to LA, Los Angeles. Bill had two brothers in LA. One was Tom King, and the other one was George King. And so they were a little bit older than we were, probably 5-6 years older than we were. And so we went and saw George. He was a draftsman back then, and Tom, evidently, Tom was pretty smart. The stories I got was he went through high school, or he went through, through high school 12 years in like 10 years, and went to work for IBM in a graveyard shift, and pretty soon he was like the manager of the graveyard shift in the second largest IBM building in the world. So anyway, we went down and we spent some time with Tom, and spent about a week with him. And Bill and I had kind of talked about, what we were going to do if we got to Hawaii before we left. And my thought was, well, if we could get jobs, maybe we could go to Australia. It was kind of a big thing back then. People were talking about going to Australia, and people just didn't travel the world like they do now. I mean, in Medford back then, you very rarely talked to anybody that had been out of the United States. I mean, maybe doctors or something had gone to Mexico or Europe or something like that. But, for the most part, the average people, they just didn't travel or get out of the United States or have a passport or any of that kind of stuff. So the world's changed a lot. We had no cell phones back then, And so, and Bill had thought, well, he would just kind of wanted to go over there for the summer and then come back and go back to college in Ashland. And so we were staying with Tom, and while we were there, we went to Disneyland. So I remember as a kid I went to Disneyland, and I got to go as an 18-year-old. And so that was kind of fun. And went to Knott's Berry Farm, and I bought this leather coat, which was really cool. It was like, suede leather, and it had the tassels off the arms, and it was kind of a late 60s look. And I think I paid $50 for it, which was probably a fortune back then. I mean, here I bought it at like the gift shop at Knott's Berry Farm. It's like, how dumb could you be? But anyway, I loved it. We were young, and so one of the times I remember was I was walking down the hall at Tom King's house, and I came into the room, and Bill had an atlas in his lap. and he looked up at me and he said, if we could get to Australia, we ought to just keep on going. We're practically halfway around the world. And that was really the first time anybody had mentioned going around the world. And so we just thought, yeah, okay, fine, and that's good. And so one of the funny stories was, the week got on and it was time for us to, go to Hawaii. And back then, you could fly what they call standby. And so if you weren't in a hurry, if they had a seat for you, they'd sell it to you like at a student rate or something, or the military or something like that could go standby. You didn't have a reservation, but if they had extra seats, they'd sell you the ticket right at the gate there for like half price or a third or something like that. So I'm thinking that's what we were doing. And so during the week, Tom had borrowed $5 from Bill. And so we're going to the airport, Tom's driving, and Bill's over in the passenger seat, and I'm in the back seat sitting in the middle, just kind of looking out the front window, and Bill turns to Tom and he goes, hey Tom, he goes, that $5 I loaned you? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, well, I need it back. I need the $5. And Tom goes, okay, and I don't know, to be honest with you, whether Tom actually, they're brothers, so it's like, I'm not sure if Tom actually paid him the $5 or not. I'm thinking he did, okay, at the airport, but on the way to the airport, the conversation continues of, Tom's like, he seems like he was, I don't know, 28, 30 years old, like an adult compared to 18, 19-year-old. And so Tom's like, well, Bill, how much money do you have? I mean, what are you guys going over there with? I mean, you're going to Hawaii from LA. It's like, how prepared are you? And Bill goes, well, I don't have any money. That's why I need the $5. I'm not making this up. So Bill was collecting unemployment from the state of Oregon because he'd had a job. So he was going to have those payments transferred to Hawaii. I think he was getting about $70 a week. So Tom, looking in the mirror, turns to me and says, Dave, what are you going over there with? And I said, I've got a return airfare ticket and about $70 in my pocket. Remember, I spent $50 on that coat. Which I later got stolen out of a car, which I can't get ahead of myself here. So we're going to the airport, so I'm assuming Tom gives Bill $5. Okay, so we get on the plane, and we're flying to Hawaii, and we get to Hawaii, get to the airport there in Honolulu, and I'm thinking, oh, let's call my aunt and have her come pick us up. And Bill goes, well, let's, we knew some people that I'd gone to school with, Mark Wright and Mark Harris. We knew they were in Hawaii, and we were pretty good friends with them. And so Bill said, well, why don't we call Mark Wright and have him come pick us up, and we'll just spend the night with him, and then tomorrow we'll call Joe and Bertha and have them come pick us up, and we'll go out to their house. Yeah, okay. We were like freewheeling. We were on no time schedule. And so I kind of went out to the curb with the stuff we had, and Bill went back to a phone booth to make this phone call to Mark Wright. So I was just kind of waiting there, so he makes the call, and I can't really see the phone booth from where I'm at, so he kind of disappears for a little bit, comes back. We're talking for a couple of minutes, and all of a sudden Bill goes, oh no, he goes, I left my wallet in the phone booth on the little counter when I made the call. He goes, I gotta go back. I go, yeah. And so he goes back. Anyway, he comes back. Somebody had taken it. So now, Bill's in Hawaii with no money. he had $5. Remember that $5? He had that $5 in the wallet. So he didn't have any money or his wallet. No ID, no driver's license, nothing. He loses his wallet on our, within an hour when we landed in Honolulu. So Mark Wright comes and picks us up, nice guy, you know, he bought us a couple Lays, you know, and he gave us some Lays and just, you know, treated us great. And so we end up, you know, going and spending the night with him. I don't remember that much about it, to be honest with you. And then we called Bertha the next day, and she came and picked us up. We went out to their house, and they lived on Cocoa Isle Circle. And I don't know the name of I don't know the number of the house, but probably have it in a diary that I've got. But anyway, they lived on Cocoa Isle Circle, which was kind of down by Hanama Bay, sandy beach, the blowhole. And it was like a man-made island, and there was like houses on it, and they had one of them. And so it was pretty ritzy for Hawaii. And so we stayed there, and so she showed us all around, you know, and they took us around the island, and, you know, we were having a good time, and we were probably there for a couple of weeks, you know, and so once in a while Bill would have to go down to the employment office in Hawaii, and he was looking for work, you know, and one thing we realized we didn't know, but you know, California obviously is a populated state. A lot of high school kids every year, when they graduate from high school, they go to Hawaii for the summer. So there's, you know, not a million, but lots, 10,000 high school kids running around, you know, looking for a job. Keeping in mind the minimum wage was $1.25 an hour then. And so I kind of felt like we had exhausted our stay with the Jeffers, and, you know, he didn't have any money, I didn't have any money. He might have gotten a check or something or two from the Oregon for unemployment. And so he was in the employment office in Honolulu talking to this guy. I didn't know this because I didn't go in with him. I was outside walking around these sidewalks. And Bertha had dropped us off, and she was going to come pick us up in a couple hours. So, I don't know, I probably was walking around for quite a long time talking to myself, you know, and so when Bill came out, it seemed like it was a pretty long time, probably an hour or so. I said, hey, you know, we got to really think about heading back home. It's like, you know, we're out of money, we've been here about 3 weeks. You know, there doesn't seem like there's anything going on, you know, and so I just think we need to think about heading home, you know. And he goes, well, let me go in and talk to this guy. He said, I talked to him the other day last week, and I just got done talking to him, and he goes, I kind of had a rapport with this guy that worked at the employment office in Hawaii. I go, okay, you know, so we walk into this office, and there's probably 25 kids our age in this little waiting area, you know, the counters there, and then behind the counters, all these desks, you know, like you'd expect to see in a government office. And so, you know, all these kids are waiting kind of in line, you know, and just kind of hanging around. And so Bill goes right up to the counter, and he asked the lady, he said, could I talk to that guy back there? He said, I was just talking to him. I'd like to talk to him again. And she turns around and she looks, and the guy's on the phone. Remember that. The guy's on the phone. And she says, well, he's on the phone. So as soon as he gets off the phone, I'll tell him. So she went back, gave a note. And so he gets off the phone. Bill goes back there, you know, cutting in front of all these people to go back there. And so they're back there for a few minutes, and so Bill waves me back, like, oh, come on back here, you know, and so sheepishly kind of going up and going through the counter and, back there cutting in front of all these people. And you can call this a miracle or whatever you want to call it. I call it a miracle, but it's just one of the many times God just intervened and blew my mind. But so he's looking at me and he's looking at Bill and he goes, well, I just got off the phone with the federal government and they're looking for 2 guys to build wooden pallets on a temporary basis for about 4 or 5 months, and it pays $3.19 an hour. And we just about passed out. And so we filled out some forms, got some packets, went out. Bertha picked us up. We went home. We filled out all this paperwork. We had to go to some military base and pick up more paperwork. Bertha knew where they all were, so she just drove us right there because Joe was in the military and they lived there a while. And so we fill out this, it seemed like 30 pages of information. And so and it took us like a couple days. We took it back home, filled it all out. Seems like it took a couple days, day and a half. Took it back. They give you another packet of like 30 pages to fill out. This time they're photographing you, they're fingerprinting you, federal government stuff. And so we end up going back a third time, and we went to, I believe it was Pier 42, and we met the guy that was going to be our boss, so he had to okay it. And so anyway, it was okay, we had the job, and we had to start I don't know, in a few days or something like that, and it was going to go through December 4th. So this was probably, we probably had to start August 1st or something. So August, September, October, November, December 4th was the contract for the 2 temporary laborers to build these wooden pallets. And so we go back to Bertha's house, and we're thinking, we need to get an apartment. And of course, we didn't have any money. And so Joe and Bertha were nice enough to loan us the money to get an apartment. And plus Bertha took us around for about a day looking for apartments. Well, we found this apartment, and it was about 2 blocks right behind the International Marketplace on Waikiki Beach. So we were like 3 blocks from the Waikiki Beach in Hawaii. And it was a 2-story, kind of an L-shaped apartment complex. Kind of looked like a Motel 6 kind of thing, L-shaped, kind of old, but, pretty decent, furnished. I don't remember how much it was. It was probably a lot of money for back then. Probably like, $265 a month or something, and, plus a cleaning deposit or whatever. So anyway, we move in there. And so I bought a 10-speed bike thinking I would ride to work and back every day just to save bus fare. I bought a bike for like $55, I think. Well, I did that twice, and it's like the traffic was so bad and horrid, it was like, no, forget it. So I ended up selling the bike to Art. Art ended up buying it from me for $50, and he just did me a favor. So we took the bus. They had a bus that went out there, so we rode the bus every day, and so a couple of weeks go by, and we must have got paid like every 2 weeks maybe.